This is a concierge service, basically. So a business has a problem. It really doesn't matter what the problem is, but they have a specific problem either through their regulatory side or a problem of something broken on the street or a street, whatever.
So this is their kind of business services representative.
Right, and so if they call 311, they'll wind up here, but they can also call here directly because they get to know the people who are answering for that district. And our job is to help them through situations. And in fact, if you go to the next slide, it's sort of an interesting sort of double story because the top bar represents, and these are self-reported by the businesses, as OBS grew and people became familiar with it, the level of satisfaction of the service is actually quite high and it's consistent. It's kind of that flattish line across the top. The percent of issues resolved varies. And in fact, if there was a flat line, it would be somewhere in the 50, 60 percentiles with some bumps. And the reason for that is that some people's issues are unresolvable. Like, I don't like how much I'm paying in taxes, but you owe it. Here's the mechanism. Here's what you didn't know about it. So that may, in their minds, that may not be a resolved issue, but they got treated well.
Right. They want you to say, you don't pay taxes.
Yeah. Right. Or we get this contract and we can't conform it because we owe 3 years of back taxes, and we can't resolve that for you. You got to pay those taxes. Pay your taxes.
Right. The premises staff sort of guides them through. I think it's a very popular service for those who know, and we. What do you think, because at the beginning of this thing, we sent out 30-something thousand letters. I think Mayor signed
36,000.
36,000 letters to businesses to let them know this was there. And it's a really good service. It could do more. And we need to be thinking about ways to get this message out more powerfully. We're not going to solve everybody's problem. That's the issue resolved line. But to get treated well and they get to sense of the city through this agency that this is a place that's interested in their affairs.
Curtis, how do you come up with that number? Is that from a party or is that internal?
We kind of just manually go through it. I have one administrative assistant on my team who randomly selects 5 clients per business service manager and calls them on the phone and asks them some basic questions on a scale of 1 to 5. How would you rank the service you got from? And we've learned from trial and error not just to say from your business service manager, but to say from Bob Colazzo or Sandy King or Nazar Sabri, so they actually remember the experience. If anything, what we want to do is make it more robust instead of just a small sampling. Mainly send out a survey, maybe using SurveyMonkey or some other tool to everybody. The challenge we have is a lot of our clients that come into us from a reactionary standpoint don't want to have anything to do with the internet, may not have an email account, and just want to talk on the phone.
Let's talk about that because I think we're building some capacity right now in the county director's office and around the phillystat team. Maybe it would help you with that kind of a survey tool.
I'd love that, yeah.
The other important thing, we need to align with L&I in that regard. The other point is the thing is we just started tracking this information. So when we reorganized, we began to track at the beginning of 2010. So now once we go in further this year, we'll be able to see the trends much more effectively and be able to react differently and what we need, staffing levels, positioning, what we need to focus on.
The thing I would say, historically speaking, we focused on quantity, but not necessarily quality. So we had a wonderful retreat that Andy Racklin led for us. And that was one of the outcomes of that retreat was we needed some type of mechanism to talk about 2 parts of our delivery channel, one reactionary versus proactive, as well as the quantity of people that we're touching, as well as the quality of that interaction, and this kind of speaks to that.
When was the last time we sent out those letters?
Just after...
Probably when this thing was created in like 2.5 years ago.
Sometime in 09?
Yeah, 09.
Probably.
We should, whether it's a letter or more cost-effective, of course, the internet, other than what may come out of Keith's shop or what may come out of water revenue or all those other wonderful instances where we interact with our constituents and our clients, we should look to have somewhat more regular positive contact with all of the various holders of business purpose license across the city of Philadelphia. Whether we're highlighting some new particular service or reminding them of various services and programs, but basically just we're here, we know you're here. How can we be of assistance? Talk about the Office of Business Services. Maybe there's something we're trying to promote. But I think a little more positive contact will help to counterbalance the bills and all the other stuff that people get in the mail from us, which of course is not a particularly positive experience. And so we need to at least try to balance that with a more positive outlook.
And I think
see if you can come back to us with some proposals and ideas about a more regular
Very much like to
series
do
of
that. So I
contacts
think-
with all the business purpose license owners, holders rather, not just a small number.
Right, because this operation, Ellen and I will talk about that in a minute, I think there are kind of front lines throughout the neighborhoods of the city. The neighborhoods of the city, they're not talking generally one to another, unlike what goes on in the center of the city where the whole development community talks to each other through their various
How many
associations.
businesses do they deal with?
Curtis, that's-
3,005 and then 2010 that we touched.
Curtis, do you integrate anything formally with the minority bars?
The minority bar, like bar
I'm sorry,
association.
the minority chambers.
Certainly.
Yeah, oh yeah, quite regularly. I have a very strong relationship with Varsovia, Nick Shinoy from the Asian Chamber, usually involved in the conversations when we're talking about their contract every year.
So they're fully aware of what you do. And
Yeah, we have a formal
Right.
relationship with them where we actually fund the chambers. We added the Asian this year as the African American and Hispanic, who we traditionally have funded. We added the Asian this year to create a much more robust, diverse pool. But through that relationship and through our interactions, not only through OVS but also through the Office of Economic Opportunity, we have a very ongoing kind of strong relationship there.
are they giving you access to their database and their membership?
That's a little bit of a different situation. We'd like to have a little bit more access. Well, but I will say that could be, and I will say to be fair to them, they control their databases. They're not by themselves. So the Greater Philadelphia Chamber, Northeast Chamber, they're all that way. But we have a stronger partnership with them, where they will facilitate the delivery of our information at whatever request we have. There's not a problem with that. So we'd love to be able to get that list, love to. But in absence of that, we make sure that we use them as a delivery mode.
Kevin Curtis, if you guys would like to be doing revenues, it goes up quarterly to a lot of practitioners within the city. About 700-800 people get it. We can add something to our quarterly newsletter that probably just disseminated out to the businesses that those practitioners work with.
That's good, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the positive communication, Mayor, that you mentioned is we do the Facebook. We have quarterly newsletters now that were not done before. We're now on Facebook. Folks are twittering. All of these are opportunities to kind of touch points with people through, we have thousands and thousands of names on those distribution lists, and we're sure that we're capturing some of the people. And so, but direct to the business privilege holders is certainly something we need to think about. But in a broader context, we have multiple string of activities touching them, communication activities.
I should also mention that this last year and now this year more strongly, in part through VISTA volunteers, we've been able to develop foreign language capacity in the ability to go out into neighborhoods. So last year we had 2 young women, one who spoke Russian, the other who spoke French, specifically in the Haitian community, really trying to get these businesses familiar with the city, familiar with what the operations are, and familiar with the help that they can get. Because particularly in the immigrant communities, they're probably least or most resistant to sort of reaching back into government.
Well, I've been out with both on
That's right,
tours
you
in
did.
their respective areas, and I have to say that they are doing an incredible job out there. The enthusiasm that the businesses exhibited literally upon seeing them, they were I have no problem saying that they were much more excited to see them than they were to see me.
Don't underestimate the president.
They've actually done something. And no, it was just a great experience. A lot of enthusiasm. They're doing a very great job out there, and it's something that to the extent that we could even look to expand into a number
we
of
are.
other communities,
We are expanding, so we've expanded to 4 this year, and so we're going to continue to have the Russian, the French. We're going to have an Asian and and I'm looking back to my Shinju Portuguese. So, and Spanish. Right. So it's amazing. These young people, they speak 2 and 3 languages. It's almost embarrassing for us, but but they speak 2 and 3 languages. So we're able to place them in areas like Portuguese and Spanish. We can knock out different communities in the Latino world, and Mandarin in the same way in the Asian world, and then but continue the Russian, which was very successful up there in Bustleton Avenue, and then also the Haitian community down in Southwest Philadelphia.
No, it's good. Okay. 17.
Okay, this is the other one I just mentioned. Again, who's on the front line?
No, I'm sorry. Just over in the growing Baltimore Avenue sector is not only Haitian, but also many other parts of the Caribbean and Africa. African communities over there, which are growing by leaps and bounds in that particular section.
And we truly recognize that. And French being the kind of linkage language that kind of links multiple. We can't get them all. But French is one that kind of links to multiple ones over there. And so through that engagement, it's almost like what Alan said, that in Center City, the developers talk together. Well, out in those communities, those folks talk to one another. And so we're able to have that greater presence.
Okay.
So this next slide is about L&I, the other sort of frontline agency in terms of how people perceive the government as a whole. What these bars, blue, red, green for basically 09, 10, and 11, represent are internal deadlines that L&I measures its performance against. And what you see under FRAN has been an exceptionally high level of conformance to their goals. The one that I want to note, and then Fran, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about this, is the last one, the one on the furthest right there, where this is about the service licensed customers. In other words, what happens at the desk, which is probably where people experience the most, in a way, fear and anxiety, right? They come down there, they take numbers, you're put in a line, you're supposed to talk to somebody, you don't know what's going to happen. And what you've seen happen between 09 and 10-11 is a very strong rise in the level of meeting a 30-minute deadline so that people, A, are not wasting time, but also their anxiety level is limited to 30 minutes before something actually happens. And having in my, I didn't have to do it much, but in my architectural career, I had to do it occasionally, and I know what's going on. It is anxiety producing because you don't really know what's going to happen or who's going to take you on or
that was then. Because, and this is, some of our data really showed what we felt were improvements. And then we have done 3 years of a monkey, the Zoomerang survey, and we also give out customer satisfaction cards when you walk in the door. And I really didn't believe it until people were walking up to me and pulling me out of line and saying, this is phenomenally different than our experience when we came here before. Now, if you're new, it still feels like government. Well, yeah, I mean, no, but if you've been here before, you know that we've made we changed a few things. One, 4 things we focused on: people, your interaction with with us, and how we perceive you as our customer, rather than making you feel like you're the problem. Process, we've made some process improvements. In terms of consolidating number of business licenses with the help of City Council, and we're trying to create a project manager model, which actually other municipalities use,